Hello and welcome to Sex in the News. We are the Siegel Brothers. The first story we're going to bring you tonight, youths with disability need education and guidance on sexual health, followed by a COVID-fueled boom in-home tests may now extend to sexually transmitted infections. And then we'll look at how Title IX protection extended to transgender students amid surge of legislation attacking their rights. So this is really not, a news story per se, but I wanted to include this because we've been talking about marginalized populations. We've been talking about groups of people that are kind of left out of a lot of sexuality education. And the American Academy of Pediatricians is about to release a brand new study. I think it's the first one and guidance since 1996.
Wow.
Right? So it's been a while. This updated AAP clinical report called Promoting Healthy Sexuality for Children and Adolescents with Disabilities is going to help address the knowledge gap and allow pediatricians to, I think, be better able and better equipped to talk to young people with disabilities.
Hopefully their parents as well, right?
Yes.
It's understandable that there's a kind of infantilizing that happens with parents who raise kids with chronic illness or developmental issues. But, it's important to remember if they're 14 or 15 or 16, right? No matter if they're developmentally 5, they're still a sexual adolescent and in need of important sexual health and information.
Exactly. And by the way, I did misspeak. It was 2006 that their last report was on, which is still a while ago. Right? Okay. Definitely time to update it. But, again, to your point, part of what is going to be in this and what they are going to be really promoting as important and essential guidelines is understanding that all people have the right to develop relationships, exercise choice and autonomy, and receive education to promote healthy sexuality, regardless of who they are or what's going on with them. This idea of public versus private behaviors, a lot of that stuff that we've been talking about for a long time, that's always going to be important. Puberty, right? And kind of normalizing the different experiences. We've both, I think, experienced that over the years as sex educators, talking to groups, particularly with developmentally disabled students and individuals. And when you talk about in general things, it's amazing what sometimes they will key in on and then say, oh no, I'm not like that. Right? I remember one time I even had to change my demonstration material because I thought I was doing a good thing. I used a really big dildo to demonstrate the condom because I wanted the people in the back to see. That was my thinking. And little did I know how many of these guys really kind of started to freak out thinking that what I was showing them is what they're supposed to look like. Right?
Well,
so I think that idea
lessons learned.
Yeah, exactly, of uniqueness and individuality is a part of this as well. And there is a piece in here to provide families with resources to help address some of these kinds of things. So, yay, American Academy of Pediatrics. This is something that you're kind of leading the medical field in.
Yeah, they do tend to be pretty progressive in advocating for children and adolescent sexuality and raising sexually healthy kids. And
that's right.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that report coming out
them.
actually at this point later this month.
Yeah. We've talked recently on Sex in the News about the big COVID sex craze that didn't happen, but now everybody, kind of coming out of this and talk of a crazy sex-crazed vaccinated summer. So this is an interesting piece on at-home tests.
Right, which started to get really popular with COVID. And obviously people aren't going out to their health departments or their doctor's offices to get STI or STD testing. And you know what? Even if they did, there wouldn't be anything for them. Right? We've talked about that a lot too over the last.
Been closed.
And all the money has been, and the funding for a lot of these programs has been redirected and diverted into COVID.
Well,
So a lot of those sexual health public programs really aren't kind of there anymore. But as things are starting to open up, people are still not very likely to go out and do that.
well, I was going to say the good news here is at least there's money left. That several places they mention here, L.A., Washington D.C., even parts of rural Idaho are mailing thousands of free HIV test kits to people who request them online.
Mm-hmm.
Starting to do the same for other STDs,
Mm-hmm.
gonorrhea, chlamydia, syphilis. They've been peaking in a lot of places.
Yeah, well, as of 2019, before COVID, we had got the more recent report where they kind of were at higher levels than we've ever seen.
Yeah. So there's these new self-swab, usually in the inside of the cheek, or finger prick tests. And remember what they say about STDs. You could prick your finger, just don't finger your prick. I'm sorry. It's Dad's birthday.
I know. I was gonna say in honor.
Dad's shirt, so it kind of rubbed off.
So that was for you, Dad, and apologies for the kind of dad joke. All right.
It was unplanned, I promise.
Like my pregnancy.
Now we're even.
So we'll see. I think this is a good, probably a good way to get people sort of tested. Because again, I think the biggest problem that we have with sexually transmitted infections is the not knowing. And the people that are out there with all of these asymptomatic infections that don't know.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good way.
Testing has always been a problem before COVID. So if somebody can just go online, just like these, for-profit companies selling tests for all kinds of food sensitivities, and I think they also do drug screening and
Oh yeah, they have
probably STD tests.
You can buy an at-home drug test in the dollar store.
Yeah, I know.
Right? Along with birth control pills. Don't do it. Don't buy them.
Don't
Gas
get your
station
birth
and dollar
control.
stores are not places to buy medication.
Yeah, or condoms.
Yeah. All right. So I think this will be something that that I think will be very, very helpful as we go down the road. Right now, with what they've found, they've already gotten something like a 6% positivity rate on the 2,000 tests that are come back.
Wow, so that's it, just like you said, people who are positive and don't know it and might not otherwise get tested.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah. So yeah, we shall see. Hopefully, we'll we'll get a handle on this. That would be nice.
Great.
So and again, we have to look to see the regulations are able to catch up.
Okay.
Right. Our next piece here, again, is something that we've been talking about in a number of different ways. It's no secret that just in the 2021 legislative session alone in the U.S., 23 states have already been considered or passed 50 bills that target transgender youth. Most of them are focused on preventing trans girls from participating in girls' sports. Right? But there's a bunch of other things that have been added in that as well. Some of these, especially Republican governors, seem to go out of their way to try to further marginalize trans kids and non-binary kids, and just that whole idea that you could be something that we don't think you are.
Right, and all kinds of bills threatening medical providers for providing treatment. Yep. Threatening to put people in jail for giving people hormones.
Yeah.
It's really getting very 17th
it's insane.
century.
It really is. It's totally insane.
Yeah.
So the good news is that the Department of Education, and this was just this past week, announced actually last Wednesday that transgender students are now protected under Title IX. Which is the federal civil rights law that was passed in 1972 that protects people from discrimination based on sex and now gender identity and sexual orientation. Right. And this is true in any educational setting that receives any federal funds.
Good.
Right? And according to Miguel Cardona, who is the current Secretary of Education, he said the Supreme Court has upheld the right for LGBT plus people to live and work without fear of harassment, exclusion, and discrimination. And our LGBT plus students have the same rights and deserve the same protections. Right? Today, the department makes clear that all students deserve the opportunity to learn and thrive in schools that are free from discrimination. So
Very
again,
nice.
we're seeing a very different first year in office than we did in the previous administration.
Yes, to say the least.
And as we like to finish off with one of our favorite pieces called Poetic Justice.
A chance to call out hypocrisy or idiocy or somebody getting what they deserve.
Indeed. And we've had a good one this week. Right? This was actually one that we enjoyed reading about.
Yes. The headline says, 14 years after a sexual assault in Tampa, a man has been charged with rape because he entered his own DNA into a genealogy database.
Let that just sort of sit for a moment.
And I always knew I didn't want to sound like a paranoid old crank, but ever since they started advertising those 23andMe and Ancestry.com, I wondered what they were doing.
Always been paranoid
with
about
all
that.
of that DNA they're collecting.
Yep. Now we know.
Yes.
Right? And by the way, in the words of Woody Allen, just because you're paranoid, it doesn't mean the world's not out to get you.
That's right.
Right?
This
This was, I think,
a cold case, right?
A cold case. It really was. I think this went back to 2007. She was a student in Tampa, right? The University of Tampa, walking back from her dorm one night, and she was raped. Right? She was a little drunk, and maybe, that was obvious, and this guy was a predatory opportunist.
Offered to walk her home
Right.
and promptly raped her.
Yeah. Right? Now, she did report this. They did do a rape kit, remember, back in 2007, but there were no matches. There was nothing in the databases that they had that they were able to match that to. So it did become a cold case file. In 2020, the detectives involved in the case decided to revisit it and reopen it back up and started to look through these genealogy websites.
Yep. According to the article, they used websites GED Match and Family Tree to find a DNA match, which they did. And they arrested the assailant, and the victim was given closure. And
this is no longer a cold case. This is now a closed case, and justice has been served.
Jared Vaughn, our rapist, and this week's recipient of our Poetic Justice.
Indeed, and deserving, very deserving of our traditional salute. And that'll do it for another edition of Sex in the News. We are the Siegel Brothers. Thanks for watching.